Hello, all you happy people. Are we so happy that we're now in our third week of online school, beginning to feel a little more regular, being in front of a camera, although still not my favorite. Today I want to just talk a little bit about a different part of the food categories and things that should be included in your diet and reasons why, knowing that most of you do not include these in your diet. So hopefully we can talk about legumes or beans and nuts and seeds are a really important part of the nutrition that God has created and designed to give health to your body. If you think about food, it's amazing the variety that we have, and sad that most Americans do not enjoy all the types of food that God has given. And so here's a new one to think about, and how can you incorporate these into your diet? And what are the benefits of that? Our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made, and God has designed a rich type of texture and varieties and nutrients, and all of those things combined in our diets can give us health and life and fight disease. So many other things. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox and we'll talk about the next thing. Legumes, what are they? Legumes are a plant whose seeds grow in pods that split along both sides when they're ripe. And so anything that's considered a legume is considered, we call them mostly beans. They do provide a source of protein as well as carbohydrates. In the last video we did, we were talking about vegetables being carbs. Primarily, that's what vegetables are. However, they can have sources of fat as well as some protein source, but most vegetables are heavy on the carb side and low on the protein. That it would be different for these plants, which are heavy on the protein as well as the carbs. Why are they important in your diet? Beans can provide a great source of protein. They can provide a great source of fiber. They have plenty of vitamins B. They have a lot of the trace minerals, calcium, magnesium, potassium. They're low in fat, and they help reduce the risk of some of our devastating diseases that a lot of our adult population are fighting. Are they a carb or protein? I think I already talked about that they are mostly protein, but of course they do have some carbs in them. One of the interesting things about beans is that they are a partial protein, but when you combine them with a grain, they make a complete protein and can be a very inexpensive and healthy way to get proteins rather than from animals. And so they do contain, like this article here I pulled, contains a high levels of fiber, protein, folate, zinc, iron, magnesium. They lower the risk of, lowers the intake of saturated fat that you find with your meats when you are consuming animal protein. When they are combined with grains, each, the bean and the grain, have these essential amino acids, and when you combine them together, it makes a complete protein. If you think about lots of different cultures that do this, I guess that's my next slide. We'll talk about that in a minute. How do you buy and store and prepare beans? Most often you can find them dry. And so how long can you keep a bag of dry beans or keep them in your pantry? They say up to 6 months, but you can keep them for longer periods of time. However, the longer you keep them, the more they dry out. They take longer to cook, and they may be a little tough. Where do you keep them? In kind of dark closets or pantry and airtight containers. When you are cooking with dried beans, there's kind of a process that you need to go through. You need to wash them, kind of rinse them out in a cold water. Usually I pour mine in a pot, and I fill up the pot several times and kind of wash through them. You kind of sort them, look through the beans to make sure there's no foreign matter or dirt clods. Sometimes that gets put in there and you want to get that out, or any beans that look irregular or something wrong with them. And so you wash and sort, and then you fill them with water, and then they go through a soaking process. If I am preparing a pot of black beans, normally I will do this at night and leave them to soak overnight. You can soak them for a short amount of time or a longer amount. Overnight works well for the process if I remember to do that. And then they need to cook. They need to simmer gently on the stovetop for several hours. And so beans are great for picking up flavor. You can add spices, and onions and garlic is usually what I put in mine, and they will absorb some of that flavor and really taste good. One of the problems of cooking your own beans from dry beans is that sometimes they become mushy, the skins fall off, and they don't look as appealing. This doesn't affect the nutrient content. It just doesn't look very good. And so the way you avoid that is slow cooking. If you're simmering them, different methods, simmering them on the stove, you just want to make sure it's a gentle simmer, and that will prevent them from turning mushy or skins falling off. If you're slow cooking them, typically you don't have as much to worry about unless your slow cooker heats too fast, and then you burn them. I've done that before. When you're cooking them on the stove, you have to check the water level because that water evaporates out and then they burn. To me, my preferred method for cooking dried beans is a pressure cooker, because then you don't burn them, and then you can cook them instead of 3 hours. A pressure cooker will cook them in 40 minutes, which is amazing, and they turn out really well. And so that's my favorite thing. Thinking about beans are a part of so many cultures around the world. They each have their own special variety of combining beans and rice, and I think of Cuban black beans and rice, Louisiana red beans and rice, Middle Eastern, they kind of focus on chickpeas. Think of hummus and chips, or some other type of grain. There's chickpea stews. India's focuses on lentils, and they make a paste with lentils, and they use some kind of bread, flatbreads to eat it with, lentils and rice. Mexican use the grains, corn, tortillas, and beans. And so all of these cultures know innately that these foods are well combined to meet your protein needs as well as your carb needs. And think of lots of cultures using different types of grains and different types of beans. In Africa, I think they use millet is the grain with the beans that they have there. It's kind of fun to see how God has designed different parts of the world to grow different things, and they pick up on that. Nuts and seeds are another good source of plant protein. Nuts are the seed kernels encased in a hard outer shell. We often think of peanuts as being nuts, but really they're not. They're considered legumes. But why do we classify them as nuts? Because their nutrient content is very similar to other types of nuts, like pecans or almonds or something like that. We do include legumes and nuts and seeds in the meat group, and so because of their protein content and their vitamin B content. Nuts are high in fat, but it's the good kind of fat. It's not saturated fat that you find in your meats, but it's mono and polysaturated fats, which are helpful for you. And so when you have a handful of almonds, you're getting good, healthy fat. Nuts are also high and rich in vitamin E, B6, niacin, folate. It has a lot of trace minerals that we need for your brain function, for your body functions, full of antioxidants. Those fight free radicals, which damage your cells, and a lot of people are linking to cancer and other diseases. Nuts can be a part of your diet to help you manage weight, to reduce your heart risk. They have a lot of cardiovascular help, and diabetes. They help with blood sugar as well. So grab a handful of almonds or look around to see if you have any of those in the pantry. Different types of nuts and seeds. How do you prepare them? You can eat them raw or roasted. Different types of methods of roasting is dry roasted or roasted in oil. Obviously the oil will add a higher fat content, and depending on the type of oil, it could be a damaged or good oil. So you kind of need to look at the process of how those, typically think of peanuts or dry roasted or roasted in oil. You can purchase them in nut butters, a variety. Besides just peanut butter is the main one, our go-to one. Almond butter, cashew butter, a variety of those. There's also seed butters, which you're probably less familiar with. Tahini is a paste made with sesame seeds. It's used in Middle Eastern foods like falafelas. I use a tahini sauce. Also, tahini is one of the ingredients in hummus. It is made from sesame seeds. You need to store nuts. It can be stored in the cabinet for a short period of time, but if you're keeping them for a long time, you need to store them in the fridge or freezer because they have oils that can go rancid. I think the exception would be peanuts because they're not really nuts, they're a legume. I don't think you have to worry about them going rancid as much. When you're using different types of seeds or nuts. If you toast them, that gives a deeper flavor, and then you don't have to use as much. It makes them more flavorful. And the way you do that is put them on a baking sheet under a broiler for less than a minute. The trick is not to overcook them and burn them. That's my favorite thing. I toast almonds for my salad, and I walk away, and it's in a matter of seconds, the oven is smoking and burning because I forgot about my almonds being on broil. So set a timer for 1 minute and check them. They should be light brown is how you want your nuts toasted. So look for ways to use beans, whether they're dry and you cook them or they're canned. Most people buy canned beans. Find some recipes and try something new this week if you can. If you have nuts and seeds available, how can you incorporate them? Eating them by the handful or making dishes with them, put them in muffins, put them in cookies, put them on your salad. Find ways to incorporate these powerhouses of nutrition that will help you and be a benefit to you. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and we will be tomorrow talking about setting a table and how to set a proper place setting, and talk about making some centerpieces, and then you'll have the assignment later on to complete doing that at home, and I'll need some pictures as proof. So hope your week goes well, and I will continue tomorrow with table setting.